Ezra Part 5, and let me show you what we have left over from the editing. And this is what was found in the last video. And let me see here as I scroll through. I got to kind of look over on the other screen to see what's you're seeing here. I added the word clay tablets because that's more correct than just saying tablets. I removed the word the. I changed the word leave to let their work go on, and not with let their governor of his people rebuild, their governor with his people. And the word issue is a question in my mind that maybe this isn't the best word here. So that's going to be done later and checked later. It's just something that for me to take a look at later. Now, I had left off talking about whether it was 12 rams or 13 rams. They would have done 13, and I'm pretty sure of that because one for each individual sin offering for the tribe, each tribe, and then one as a whole, a nation. And that would have been done on the large altar, and that would have been done by the high priest. And the governor would have brought over, or would have been the one making the offering for the people because there was no king. Now, could Haggai be the one, the prophet? Because a prophet could do this, I think, but I would more or less say that it would have been the governor. But there are reasons you could say when you look at what Samuel has done. He would offer a peace offering, and they already had a king. So down here, Ezra went up. That was very important to know that because that's how we got to the word Egypt. So now I can just say he came there. He didn't went up, he journeyed to Jerusalem because now we know where from. And I added the last month here to be more correct. And that way the text now reads really, really good. Now I need to blow this up a little bit and start working on the rest of what happened. This is the copy of the decree sent by the king from Egypt. And Ezra was not a priest, it is their leader, okay, at this time. Now, he is the one that's guiding the group, so I'm putting as leader, even though he's known as a scribe or a judge that people would have sought out to understand the laws in Egypt. And he had to be somebody of importance to be able to approach the king for Egypt or be sent from or asked from the king of Egypt what's going on. So he was a very prominent person in Egypt when he was there, but he is going to lead the people out or back to Jerusalem. So the word leader here is going to be the word I use, and like this. No, he's like this is trying to say what he knew and stuff like that, but we already know that. We don't need a repeat of what's going on. Artist, King of Kings, Kings of Kings does not need it because he is not King of Kings. Babylon is much stronger. Okay, this is the letter being read. So it would be Arda King. Arda our King. are the king of Egypt. It would have to be of Egypt. So let me grab a word here. Are the king of Egypt. And I'm thinking I should put the letter, or start out I, artist, king of Egypt. Or for Egypt. So let me go here. Then it would be I, Arta, king for Egypt. Now he would say of, I guess. He would say of. I, Arta, king of Egypt. To Ezra, Ezra, their leader. Their leader and scribe. Okay, so he recognized him as a scribe and not a judge. Okay. So we got rid of the word priest again, because you can't call him a priest when he's not doing any of the services. Or ministering, I guess. I don't want to, I try to use the right word, I'm sorry. And then the decree is issued. I have issued a decree. Here that word is going to be, it's kind of like he's ordered a decree. Okay, that's what I had a problem when I was rereading last time. So that's just something that small changes that can be done later. But here he's announcing that any descendant from Israel, because it says that any of the people of Israel, of is not the right word. From Israel, they understood that they're descendants, and they knew that that's how they relate to themselves, because they were for the promises from our Creator. So it has to be descendants, okay, not just people. Whom are in my kingdom, who are willing to go to Jerusalem, you may leave with Ezra. There needs to be a 4-verse here, and this is the verse that I'm choosing not to have there. In this way, you may leave, which one of the rare times I leave the word may alone, that maybe some Israels didn't care whether maybe they fell away from our Creator and they didn't want to go back, and they're happy where they're at. But the problem is here is that, again, I needed to use the word Ezra here, may leave with you. That would be almost king talking one-on-one. The degree is to be announced that everybody. So Ezra has to be somebody of importance to their people. Okay. Now, he is being sent by your king. I guess I forgot the word. Okay. That's him talking. And his 7 counselors. A king does not need his counselors, and we don't need to know the number. To inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem. That isn't what's going on. He's sending them there to be there, because watch the words that are coming up here. According to the law of your God. That is not truthful neither. So let's get rid of those and show you the real truth here. Because it is not in their hand. This does not, it's in the king's hand. But he is sent by your king to bring silver and gold from your king and my counselors. Okay. So now they know that he's being sent with silver and gold from their king and counselors, okay? Or his counselors, my counselors. Have freely offered to God for Israelis. This is not really needed. King does not have to justify himself before the people. He's telling them that he's sending you with silver and gold from your king and my counselors. Okay. Now, with that, we have to really dig for verses, because the story here, who is dwelling in, because they're tying that to this verse here, this here, that isn't really necessary. We know where Jerusalem is at and what's going on. We aren't stupid. And which you will find the whole province of Babylon, all the silver and gold, which you will find in the whole province of Babylon. This is like he's trying to be the king of Babylon, which is not true. He's also saying that the people are going to offer freely, and the priests who offer it willingly for the housework. This is just gibberish, not needed. We're looking for a continuing story. Now, this money, okay, so when we're talking about silver and gold, we're talking about the coins, okay, that they're coins. This money, they could be talents, okay. Talent was money. It was more like $1,000 bill. Okay, but you can break it down, and they used weights to judge money. So talents probably would have a stamped number on it telling you how much it's worth, or how much the king, because it's coming from the king, so it's probably registers as by weight, and the value of it would be determined by the people saying, I want to sell this for a certain price, and I'm not going to take 10,000 coins. I want a talent of gold, and then I want 2 talents of silver. So it could be talent, or it could be or coins. And you will buy, and you notice all the text that I'm taking out here really doesn't need much or mean much when you, it kind of skips over the story, because it says to buy bulls, rams, and lambs, and grain offerings for libation, and offer them on the altar. That, none of that is done correctly. I mean, that's said correctly enough to be truthful. That's why I didn't make a 3-verse from that, because that's what these are. It's 1, 2, 3, and whatever seems good to you, which would pretty much sounds like the end of this to start here. I mean, it flows really good. With this money you will buy whatever seems good to you, and the rest of the silver and gold you are to do according to the will of your God. This is debatable what one I would remove. But I do need this verse here, and then I could take out this, but it's also, when people are leaving, they need to be able to spend money on themselves as they go through. I mean, I don't know how large this group is. Let's say there are 20,000 people. This money is to be used to help people when they arrive there, that they have to get established. They have to have some kind of money so they can start bartering with or buying from each other. You need this establishment of the money. So whatever seems good to you, that is very important. Although it seems like it might not be, but when you reason it out, that's what's okay, or that needs to be there. The rest of the silver or gold, well, that's tying it to this verse. So whatever seems good to you, and down here it's going to be or I could use the word or, do according to the will of your God. Okay, so that means this is out and this is out. We have 3 verses. Now he's saying that he's sending the utensils, but they aren't the utensils. Okay, this text actually looks like it was pulled out from above when I studied this. Like I said, I put like 20 hours into the text, or probably more, but the object is that it was confusing where these words were. And then when I realized that I went and looked and glanced above, that I could almost move a lot of these words that are being said here and change the king's name and say it's up above. So, but the utensils, no, that was from Babylon, not Egypt, or even Persia. Persia is not around. I'm going to show you a timeline that I've done over the years that I think is very important. It's estimated, but some of it is so perfect it's not funny. Let's see here. This is, like I said, these words could come from above, so they're not. There's some of this is truthful, but the object is they aren't needed. And he is a king of Egypt. He can't go and act like he's a ruler over the governors of that are set up by Babylon. So this can't be done there. And here is trying to say he's a priest. We know that's not right, so this has to be removed. This here is the number of things that were given to him, and this text just isn't needed. I'm sure the people at that time, it sounds like when they're in Egypt, they aren't really captives. They're there established to live there in the kingdom of Egypt. Egypt, you got to remember, is very, we call the United States a melting pot where a lot of races come together to be free. This is what Egypt did, but it was been not to really be free. They were ruled by a king, so he could dictate. But it seemed like a lot of races gathered there because there was a lot of food there. The Nile River has a lot of fresh water to be able to have gardens all over the place. I mean, so people that wanted to go there would go there, and they had their freedom under him, and as long as they didn't get out of hand, they were okay. I mean, it was a kingdom that a lot of races lived together and understood it. When you look at what Babylon had done, Babylon kind of kept them in groups. But they ruled over them, but they kept them as a group of, we took over this kingdom, but you stay here in this area, okay? And we'll dictate to you from there. But I need to continue here. This text here, all this in yellow, all that I'm going to go through here is not really needed. And I'm hoping you kind of read it and see for yourself. And I'm going to go just kind of skim through it. I've been over it so many times, I know that this is not flowing with the information. Example, you can't do the impose the taxes on, or toll. But like I said, that text could have gone upward. I mean, I know it's a repeat of some of this, so that's why I'm not keeping it and saying, let me put it up there at the top. I don't see anything in here specifically of that. Because when you set up a governor, it's pretty much you set up the magistrate and judges, okay? So that's not needed. This is not needed. and I got them divided into groups, and you can see that, you know, there are a format here, but we don't need to dictate what's going to go on by those people there under a different king. But like I said, when you read it, this would have been some of the things that if King of Babylon would have kind of said, and this would have been some of the words that, yeah, maybe I should really kept. This was because, like I just got done telling you, some of it's a lot of double. Well, you can see that this kind of text was taken out from the text above, but it is still something that that king from Babylon might have said, just because he's trying to tell the governor, you're in full control of being able to kill people for not doing what they are, and I'm giving you that authority. That's the kind of how they ruled what a governor had, the authority for the governor. Okay. And this is not anything important. Yeah, and now we're back to being with counselors. Well, we already have this. And then it kind of comes down here that, yeah, this is text that we need. Thus we were strengthened by the hand of YHVH, so that they gathered to me to lead the descendants from Israel to Jerusalem. Now, right now, I need to leave it as a 4 group, because if I go way back up here, I've got 3, but I can always get rid of 1 if the text, because you never know how the story is going to happen below. So it might all of a sudden end up being 4. For example, here's a 4 group here, okay? But this isn't necessary. We know that they're descendants from Israel. They're already heading there. So it's out, or I'm going to say it's out. Here, now we have a 3 verse in the middle of all this text. It's actually got a 3 verse, and it's important because this is where they assembled at. Now it says a river, okay? Let me try to separate this and get rid of that text there and move this text down so we're working with it here. Now it says a river, okay? Now let me show you something about Egypt. Now I showed this map before, and what I tried to do was because I'm looking for the mileage down at the bottom. Are you seeing that mileage? You're not seeing the numbers on the bottom. This area is 240 miles. So you can see that if I've got 180 miles or 300 kilometers, the king isn't going to be walking around. So they're going to start here. And okay, let's see. They're going to start here. Oops, yeah. And they're heading to way over here, okay? Now, like I said before, that this path could have went this way or whatever, and they had to make stops close to this lake. You see no river. There are many, there's like 5 rivers up here across from here to over here. I just put them in to say that's the area when I was doing the map. So it has to be the lake is where they met at, okay? Because this river here, let me see if I can do this. This river right here is like a dividing line between the territory for Egypt and the territory for Babylon. Okay, now it's this reasoning because it is still today called the River of Egypt. Okay, so this is how I would say that this is the dividing line, and that was agreed upon. And they could have lived anywhere in here, even though this is like the Sinai. It's kind of like a desert through here. As you can see, it just starts to be lush green in here. But this is where many of the people would have lived in this area. I think it's actually called Goshen at the when they were in Egypt, and they had to be made slaves, and then they came down here to live with the king. So I think that's what the word was that they were using as the place that they were living at. But the object is that this lake here is got to be the lake that's being talked about. There is no river that would be on the way. So I need to go over and grab the text again and show you this is why I put the lake, and then I'm going to leave this as the name for that lake. Even though it's most likely not the name for that lake, this is what they might have called it at that time. And we needed to camp there 3 days to see how many people, not to observe, but to see how many people were coming. I guess I can add those words later, but this is where they're going to be part of the travel to Jerusalem. I forgot to mention the dates that we're coming across here as the travel time. And this here, you can see from here, oops, you can see, well, let me go from here, or if it was from here, that this distance here to here would have been close to maybe 150 miles, the way the bird flies. But the object is that how long does it take to get from here all the way up to here, or even from here to here with a group of people. So when the dates are talking that they started on the 1st of the month and they arrived at the beginning of the 1st of the next month, remember there's 5 7-day weeks, and then there would have been a little extra couple days depending on the summer, no, the way the numbers are calculated for the Hebrew calendar. There's always a few days at the end. That's usually the week of, well, anyways, let me get back to the text here. But now you have an idea of how long they're going to be and get an estimate of how much time they had. But we don't need a list of all the men that come with them, because here they're going to put those temple servants in and stuff like that, and they never existed. They were attendants, and you don't have them by the group. They were designated probably 2 people to every priest to be able to have one help him bring things in, set everything up on the altar, and then the priest doing the actual action, and then you'd have one remaining in the chair around the courtyard waiting for the next person to arrive, because they come there and the seat's empty. They're kind of like, what's going on? So my estimation is that there's 2 attendants to every priest, okay? And they would have came along with the priest, and when the priest left, the attendants would leave with him. So it's not like you get the family lineage that they've got in here, okay? Then I proclaimed a vow for us there at the river of hell. And what I did, this has got to be lake. And that's the name of the lake. That we humble ourselves. And it's not that we might be humble. You can't use the word might. You need to use the word are. You're supposed to be humble to our Creator, because what he's seeking from our Creator, from that group when he proclaimed it, they're camped there, to seek from our Creator over here, so I can use the word Him, and that's okay, a safe journey for us and the little ones, and for all our, not possessions, but livestock. Livestock was very important. They were not vegetarians, so they so I use the word livestock because that's important. Then it was for I was ashamed to request the king's troops. I had to add the king's, making it his. The king troops and horsemen, that wasn't right, to protect us from not just the enemy, but the raiders on their way. Okay? Because we had told our king, the hand of our Creator is favorable to all those who seek him. Now, these two are here, are out of place. They didn't connect with anything. And so we fasted. They did not fast. They vowed, okay? They vowed and sought our Creator. They vowed this humbleness, okay, that we read, and not a fast. They vowed and sought our Creator concerning this matter, what he had just told them, okay? And our Creator listened to our petitions, not entreaty, but there were petitions. A petition is asking our Creator for something, and if they're asking for safety, that is a petition. When they vowed that they'll be humble before him and start obeying as a group again, because they are being sent back to Jerusalem that he's reestablished, and they would have been aware of the prophecies that said, if you remain unto me, then you can come, I will bring you back. Now here, then I set apart 10 and 2 leading priests. He couldn't do that. He wasn't a governor at that time, so that text is out. But he set apart this guy here and this guy here as, and their 10 brothers. Now, why did he set them apart? Because he weighed out to them the silver and gold. Well, he didn't really weigh them out. He more or less counted them out. I know I've got counted someplace. Yeah, down here. And because it was done by hand, and then when you see it, it's not, it was talents of silver. And talents of gold or silver are like this big, as far as I've seen when you do searches on talents. That's kind of how they say it. And that could be made into a lot of gold pieces or a lot of silver pieces. So that's why I was saying it's like a talent's like $1,000 bill. Probably even more if it goes to the gold. But the object here is that it's going to be counted out. Okay? Because you can see that this is not a weight. Counted out to them the silver and gold, and they didn't take the utensils, and they didn't need this to describe what the gold is for. We have that already. And then it's from the king and counselors, okay? So we don't need this, we know that, but the story is why they're counting out, they're telling them where it come from. And then it was counted out by hand, this much in silver and gold. So when you're thinking of how many people are traveling, what I mentioned early, maybe 20,000, we don't have that number here. This kind of money, I don't think covers a lot of that. But if it's just traveling expense money to get established, yeah, it's going to be a lot of money. But I don't see it as, what would I say, because it's a short ride, so drive there within a month. They're bringing a lot of their own grain. They would have bought a lot of the stuff before this hand because they were gathering, so they had their own money. They would have been gathering grain by buying it by the sackful. So here this money is going to be used as, I think as he said above, whatever it takes for your people to get there, and then whatever our Creator wills. Now, to sit here and say they counted all these bowls out, no, they didn't. He didn't have them, okay? Plain and simple, he didn't have them. Then he said to them, and you aren't holy just carrying money. You have to be anointed to be special, and even when you're anointed, you're not holy. But then I said to them, you are now like your forefathers, for you are to watch over and carry them. Okay, and this was a word that was added by the writers of the New American Standard Bible in 1977. I agree that the word needs to be there, but he was intending to say here, by your forefathers. Two times when the tent was in the Sinai, and they had taken silver and gold, when they left, and the people were most likely giving it to them because the king ordered it, somebody had to carry that money. So this is what he is referring to. Also, when David moved the tent from Shiloh and started moving it, and only got as far as a hill that is now known, they try to put a label on it as Zion, like each of the hills have a name. I don't think so, but that's where the house was established. This carrying of the money, that's what he's referring to here. And then he's given them a direction until you count them, which is the talents summed up together, before the priest and the governor for Israelis. He's heading back. He knows there's somebody already there. He knows that they would have been setting up the priests, and this money is to be given to them and the governor for what is needed. Okay. And they didn't weigh it out, and they didn't bring the utensils, so this is just junk. And they journeyed from the lake on the 10th of the second month, in the last month. Now, we can say that I was trying to show you the timeline, and this is why, because these numbers can't be true, okay? If it's the 10 and 12, or it would have been the 12th of the last month, then you only have maybe about 20 days or less to travel that 100 and so many miles. I would say, yeah, it's possible, but that's awfully tight. But it lets you know there might be a conflict when we look at the text that's done above, because I think somewhere was already mentioned that they started out at the first of the last month. Anyways, I had to use the last month because they're on the same schedule, same year. Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, this is, they journeyed there, then our Creator did deliver them from the hand of our enemy and raiders. Okay, now the word enemy has to be allowed into the text, for on the way they're starting to go through the Amalek's area, or those that were the remnant of those people. And then there's people that are in Edom that could have come over and raided them. That's why I tried to show you that the travel where they would have been closer to the Mediterranean Sea than right straight up or in the middle. Remember, they've got to have a water supply, and their Sinai is a desert, so they needed to get to water from spot to spot, and from the lake they could have gathered a lot of water for the people. and then that lake or that river for Egypt. Okay. When we came to when we came into Jerusalem, now this is putting it in the writer that Ezra would have been writing this text, because he was the scribe. So pretty much the text we're seeing here is written by Ezra, and you notice the book was named after Ezra, but they tried to make him a prophet, put him in the books of prophets. And what I'm saying here is, we know that Habakkuk is the only, or not Habakkuk, Haggai is the only prophet that has been that declared a prophecy in Jerusalem. I believe Daniel was the governor, so that's how I have edited the text, and I gave those reasons in the videos above. So this here doesn't need to be mentioned. It's not needed. And the silver and gold, not the utensils, they didn't take them, were counted out by the house for our Creator. Now, it says here who he handed them to, but we don't know who the actual high priest is. Okay. So this text is going to be taken out. It's not really needed, because he's going to give it to the high priest, because I have it as before the priests and then the governor. Okay, so this here, I can't really verify what's going on in this text, who the high priest is, because there is no one really being appointed that I know of. Then everything was numbered and then weighed by weights and recorded at that time. They had to have their own values set on things, so the numbering of their weights and how they recorded with their weights, the scaling might have been different from Egypt's, because they were under Babylon. Not who had, that came. They didn't offer burnt offerings. Offering burnt offerings, because the word there was not here. These aren't burnt offerings. They're because here again, they're talking about the 12, and I know it's 13, and now we know that that these offerings are sin offerings, that they were offering on the, I think it was the day of probably the preparation day. Anyways, I'm confused. I'm trying to go a little bit faster to go through this text. This is getting a long video for Ezra, but there's so much that's important and needs to be explained. But they were offering to our Creator. This is what happened when they were there. Okay. Of Israel. Now, this here is talking about the nation Israel, okay? And this was the nation that he brought out of Egypt. That way they were including everybody that might have been in Egypt from the time, even when Israel's taken captive. Maybe they didn't want to flee down into Judah. But the object is they were offering it for all Israel up there when they got there. And yeah, here, for all Israelis, which I tried to tell you the difference between Israelis and a Jew. Israeli is one who obeys our Creator, and Jews, they just don't. Okay, they're just doing their evil things. They're sinning all the time by not obeying our Creator, and they should. Anyways, and this is the sin offering. They would not have done any of this for the sin offering. Okay, we have the number up here, the correct number. There are 13 altars, and when we're talking about all Israel as a nation and all Israelis, that needs to be on one for each tribe and one on the large altar for the nation. Okay. And then they were burnt before our Creator, and that's the truth. They are hung. The meat is hung on. The muscles are hung on hooks, and then the fire has to be intense enough to burn the meat to a crisp. So don't think that, okay, that muscle is this large. Well, they're going to cut it up a little bit so it burns up a little bit faster. So don't think it's these great big pieces and the fire needs to be that big. Remember, it would have been cut up to burn up as fast as possible. Then they delivered their king's decree. I didn't put edicts here. It was a decree. It was labeled as a decree to the governor east of the Jordan River for them to support their group. Now, when the word support here was needed and it was people, it's more or less that Ezra's group needs help now to be established. And so some of that taxes now that you can see that are being gathered are to help the people settle in and get started. How large this group is, that's where I was saying if it's 20,000 people, that would be huge. If 30,000, that's possible. 40,000, that's when I get kind of doubtful what's happening. You can judge for yourself on those numbers. I can't complain how you're thinking of that, the number, but just know that the money that's coming from Babylon is needed to be supported by their group. So it was this king, like I said, had to talk to Babylon over what has been happening up here. Then Ezra got with them probably in the beginning, and that's how the king sent up and found out the answer and then come back down. And then since they've kind of talked it out, that now that this group is here, you're supposed to support it. And I'm sure that the governor east of the river sent up information to find out if they're supported, and I'm pretty sure that the king up there told them to. But they wouldn't have done it without a royal request or understanding the situation. But we don't need this text here, and because we've got 3 verses, you can see we got 4 here. So this is kind of needs spacing. This is going to be a story about how the people did not separate themselves from the other people in the lands. Okay, so here I'm using the word races. Now, those of you who know the text, yes, that is what our Creator told them when they were moving into the Promised Land, that you are not to intermarry, okay? So this verse here, this really here, is not true. They didn't do this up in Jerusalem. When he gathered them together by the river, this is where I believe that this text needs to be moved to. For the simple fact, it starts out that the princes, you don't call yourself a prince when you're under another king. So I have to use the word, some men approached me, which would have been Ezra, saying, our people have not separated themselves from the races in the land, races in Egypt. Okay. And I was trying to mention that it's a melting pot. That's how you get to the word races from here. For they have taken their daughters as wives, and I can agree with this being added, and their sons as husbands, okay, for their daughters. So you have to add as husbands to intermingle with those races. This is just repeating a little bit of whatever, but he's pointing out that we're married this way and we're here and we're heading north. What are we supposed to do? Because he's aware that this was whoever, some of these men came to him. Now you know that these men were well aware of obeying our Creator, and then when they looked around, they seen that, well, if we're going to go back up there, we got a problem because we already have this shame of not obeying our Creator. And this being the hands of leaders or whatever, this just princes and rulers. They aren't rulers. They aren't princes. Then Ezra is more or less saying, when I heard about this, I tore my garment, and it says a robe. A priest wears a robe, so his garment, the garments that they wore were actually, if they were true Israelis, they would have wore hides, because that was how you could distinguish a Hebrew. They were the ones that tried to stay true. Jesus wore a garment. This is what they're talking about, as a hide, and it would have been from a ram or a goat. And then he didn't pull any hair out of his head. That's just stupidity. And sat down appalled, or sat down worried. Okay, he too knew that it was not obeying our Creator, but he too become this worried person, like these men were, that, hey, we're heading back and we're already done this. Now, how are we going to handle this situation? So they wouldn't have done this in Jerusalem. They wouldn't have got there and then decided. Okay. Then everyone trembled, and that would have been the group that they were with, because it doesn't need to be at the words, but it would have been at the command of our Creator of Israel, but that's not really needed. They would have just known on the account of their unfaithfulness of the exiles gathered to me. And this is just referring to those that had gathered to him, and he's calling them exiles. In other words, they're the ones that had left on their own, and that's a very truthful word. They weren't captives, they were fleers, but they were the exiles. The correct use for the word exile here. And he sat appalled, well, he sat worrying. He sat worrying until evening. Then I arose from our shame. It says humiliation, but you aren't humiliated over this. You are shamed because you know that the people didn't do this. This is why I said he wasn't appalled, he was worried. So it was a shame that they'd done this, because there's no really true law from our Creator except to say, don't do this. So that's, he didn't want them to, example, you intermarry, their males are gonna believe in their gods. That is why they were not to intermingle. They intermingled with their daughters, then some of the men would become weaker and not believing on our Creator, because they didn't want to believe in our Creator. So that's why he didn't want them to intermingle with the races. And I fell on my knees and stretched out my hands to YHVH our Creator. Now you notice how personal the text got. I did not put these I's in here, okay? But this was very good to see this. I'm ashamed and embarrassed to lift my face up to you. Our iniquities is not the right word. I'm just going to highlight it in yellow. Iniquities refers to sins. This is not a sin. But yes, it's more or less like our guilt for wrongdoing. This would be a wrong that they didn't obey that command from our Creator, so they've done a wickedness. Okay, not an evilness. Evilness is referring to a higher degree of sin. And our guilt has grown since the day of our forefathers. Okay, I have to stop the text here. And yeah, I put it as shame here. And I'm going to use these words here. And then I'm going to divide it. And stop it here. And do video 6. Down here. But what I'm going to do, like I always do, I'm going to try to grab the text here and clean it up real quick so you got it. Whoops, yep, that's. And we get to get a quick look at. Well, let me do this before I leave. And as you know, it takes a little bit of time to do this one. And I have to go like this. Let's see. I've got to grab all this text now. I'm going to clean it up on the other side here. This can now go down here. So paste this here, go all the way back up to the beginning. And that way, as I'm editing it, you can actually read it from front to bottom. And I'm going to make it smaller, so as I clean it up, it should be enough for you to be able to read. Let's see, this all can be cleaned up. I can see I've got to clean it up. I got 4 verses. I didn't even know that when I was going through here. And I am trying to be quiet so it doesn't disturb your reading. Let's see, I think I should go about this far. And now I'm going to move it up. Should have got that far, I believe. And you're probably sitting there saying, well, you can correct this. I see that error there. That's pretty good if you're doing that. I'm really hoping that your righteousness and understanding of the text, you can see the words that need to be there or not there. See, I've got another 4-verse group here. See, if I get rid of this now, and that's what I would do there, get rid of that to match this, because like I was complaining about it before. So that is how that verse is going to get taken care of. Okay, this is going to be the last group here, so wait a second, this blue needs to be removed. I should have brought it down, but and that's how that text is going to look. And I did try to get it under an hour, but a minute over. So let me go up here and let you, I'm going to take this out and just go up here for those that want to take a screenshot here and go through it on your own, and as you wait for the next video, because I have been a little slow lately and trying to post them as a group, but that way you don't have to go through the whole hour of what's going on here to get to this text, because I will put it in the beginning of the next video as well, and then go from here, and this will be starting of video 6, and I'll see you in the next video.